From epic celebrity concerts to major fashion controversies, the run-up to the 2024 presidential election was dramatic, to say the least. No surprise, then, that people still have a lot of questions about the Kamala Harris campaign. In a matter of months, Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign raised a record-breaking $1 billion in fundraising. Weeks after losing the election, however, Harris's camp was still requesting donations. Campaign officials confirmed to NBC News that the post-election fundraising would go towards funding the Democratic National Committee's state recounts or curing ballots. The officials also claimed that there was no significant debt from the campaign, yet these additional donation requests raised questions about how the initial campaign funds had been spent. Most of the money went towards advertising, which cost a whopping $680 million, as well as a number of high-profile campaign events. After conceding the election, Harris's campaign was rumored to be $20 million in debt, and some have even claimed that a number of staffers went unpaid. The final count of debts and expenses are still unknown, however, because unpaid invoices are still being processed. Breitbart's Washington bureau chief Matthew Boyle has claimed that the $20 million figure is indeed real, but the Harris-Walz campaign has yet to respond to these allegations. Celebrities came out in droves to support Harris's bid for president. Now that the campaign is reportedly in debt, though, many are wondering if these extravagant celebrity endorsements had something to do with it. For example, Oprah Winfrey's production company, Harpo Productions, was paid a whopping $1 million to host a town hall in September 2024. And Winfrey wasn't the only one allegedly being paid big bucks either. Leading up to the day of the election, the New York Post reported that Harris hosted 7 concerts in swing states, costing up to $20 million in total. These events boasted huge names such as Jon Bon Jovi, Christina Aguilera, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, and 2 Chainz, performing at rallies all around the country. What's more, Harris's team allegedly spent 6 figures building a set for the VP's appearance on the Call Her Daddy podcast.
I don't want to hear about public policy is a fancy kind of speech or paper. Tell me how it'll affect a real person.
It's hard to say whether any of this actually made a difference in terms of votes, but it was clearly a risky gamble for the Harris-Walz campaign. Harris made her first campaign appearance with Republican Liz Cheney in October 2024. Just a month before the election, the unlikely pair teamed up in a last-ditch effort to reach conservative voters. Cheney, a Republican who has publicly shared her disdain for Donald Trump, believed that her fellow Republicans could cast a country-over-party vote for Harris.
Our republic faces a threat unlike any we have faced before.
While the media and many Democrats loved the idea, the team-up proved to be less than fruitful for Harris's campaign. In the election, conservatives backed Trump in even bigger numbers than in 2020, particularly in Ripon, Wisconsin, a place where Liz and Harris had focused their efforts. All in all, it seemed like spending day after day with Liz Cheney was a colossal waste of time for Harris. Okay, so maybe fashion magazines aren't what they used to be, but it's still pretty cool to get on the cover of Vogue, right? Still, that didn't stop the K-Hive from turning a mediocre photo shoot into a new media meltdown. Harris graced the cover of the magazine's February 2021 edition wearing a decidedly casual look: black pants, a blazer, and her signature low-top Converse All-Stars. Vogue has faced criticism in recent years for its lack of black artists, so the mag had a black photographer shoot the cover, one who, according to the New York Times, was known for his unstudied aesthetic. This photo might seem fine to the untrained eye, but it caused an uproar on social media, with commenters calling it unfancy and disrespectful. But it wasn't just the white knights on X who hated the photo. At one point, the digital magazine released another photo, this one with Harris in a powder blue suit. Apparently, this was the image that had been agreed upon beforehand, but the folks at Vogue changed their minds last minute, sparking private disgruntlement from Team Harris, as well as the bizarre social media controversy that followed. Kamala Harris's journey to political prominence initially began after she graduated from the University of California's Hastings College of Law with a JD in 1989. She famously attended Howard University for her undergrad degree. The future vice president took her first job as a deputy district attorney in Oakland, California in 1990, serving until 1998. But Harris's career may have started in earnest when, in 1994, she met the powerful California politician and San Francisco mayor Willie Brown, who was, quote, a notorious womanizer, according to the San Francisco Weekly. Harris was 29, Brown 60, and married, although, according to the debunking website Snopes, he had been estranged from his wife for more than a decade. He was powerful in Bay Area politics, and the two began dating. Brown was also allegedly corrupt, his office under investigation by the FBI, and Harris eventually dumped her aging lover. Still, when she ran for district attorney in 2003, Brown put his weight behind her anyway. Harris won, but according to Politico, critics, including her opponents, were bemoaning cronyism at City Hall. Once in office, Harris threw Brown under the bus. The ambitious young politician declared her benefactor all but dead, saying, "His career is over. I will be alive and kicking for the next 40 years. I do not owe him a thing." Politico branded Harris as, quote, ruthless. Harris has been spinning a seemingly apocryphal childhood yarn for years that goes something like this. When she was a toddler in Oakland, California, she was separated from her parents at a march. Young Kamala was found, but fussing, and according to Harris's retelling in an interview with Elle, her mother asked her, "Baby, what do you want? What do you need?" And I just looked at her and I said, "Freedom." Harris told versions of this tale in her 2010 book Smart on Crime, as well as her 2019 book The Truths We Hold: An American Journey, according to the New York Post. She giggled her way through the anecdote on late-night TV with Jimmy Fallon as well.
And she said, "Kamala, what do you want?" And I said, "Freedom."
However, observers have pointed out a remarkable similarity to a story that Martin Luther King Jr. told Playboy during the Civil Rights era. In 1965, King recounted the story to Playboy, saying, "I will never forget a moment in Birmingham when a white policeman accosted a little Negro girl, 7 or 8 years old, who was walking in a demonstration with her mother. 'What do you want?' the policeman asked her gruffly, and the little girl looked at him straight in the eye and answered, 'Feed 'em.'" While the similarities in the stories can't be ignored, Snopes remains undecided on whether it's outright plagiarism, stating that Harris claims to have no direct memory of the incident, but rather has simply repeated a story told to her by her mother. Politicians love to pretend to be cooler than they are. Kamala Harris's Democratic successors did it too. Bill Clinton made his first big splash on the national scene in a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses, blowing out a saxophone solo to Heartbreak Hotel on the Arsenio Hall show in 1992. But Clinton also claimed that while he'd tried marijuana, he didn't inhale. During Harris's run for executive privilege in 2019, the public's view of this stinky little weed had changed dramatically, and the then aspiring POTUS was endorsing legalization. Speaking on The Breakfast Club amid fits of laughter, she said,
"It was a long time ago." But yes.
I know you have to go. They say you have to go.
I just broke news.
Harris claimed her experimentation was in college, and when one of the interviewers asked her who she listened to while high, she laughed again.
Definitely Snoop. Tupac, for sure.
Well, not for sure. According to Newsweek, critics quickly pointed out that Harris graduated from Howard University in 1986, 5 years before either rapper released a debut album. Her defenders claimed Harris was just confused by crosstalk and was actually answering a more general question about artists she likes. Harris's opponent in the Democratic primaries, Tulsi Gabbard, had a different and perhaps more important grievance with the segment, saying that Harris jailed over 1,500 people for marijuana violations and then laughed when asked if she ever smoked. During Harris's failed bid for the Democratic nomination in 2019, in which her much-hyped campaign collapsed before the first caucus, she offered up an ambitious plan to, quote, overhaul the criminal justice system, according to Politico. Her sweeping plan, the article said, called to end federal mandatory minimum prison sentences, do away with both the death penalty and solitary confinement, and to phase out for-profit prisons and cash bail. But Harris's top-of-the-ticket campaign may have imploded, in part due to her own previous stances on criminal justice. According to The Week, Harris, quote, sometimes embraced her tough-on-crime record, but perhaps in light of the ascendant Black Lives Matter movement and the push to reallocate resources from the police to other social services, the former top cop, quote, seemed ashamed of her own tough record as DA and Attorney General. In one interview on ABC News in 2019, she said she protected the, quote, most vulnerable as a prosecutor.
A large part of my career as a courtroom prosecutor was handling cases that affected crimes against women and children.
Part of the criminal justice system Harris and activists now want changed is one that imprisons minorities at a disproportionate rate for minor drug offenses, according to a report by Human Rights Watch. But according to Mercury News, as Attorney General of California, Harris oversaw 1,900 convictions related to marijuana. She also, quote, fought to keep people in prison even after they were proved innocent, according to Vox, and further defended California's death penalty, all while refusing to look into, quote, certain police shootings. Her work as a prosecutor still haunts Harris politically, according to the Los Angeles Times. After all, no one put her in prison for smoking a joint. In 1998, a fight broke out in a parking lot in California's San Fernando Valley. Cops thought they saw a man, Daniel Larson, ditch a knife under a car. Larson protested his innocence, but also had 2 serious prior felony convictions, and under California's harsh 3 strikes policy, was sentenced to 28 years to life, according to The Atlantic. The Innocence Project eventually took up Larson's case. Turns out Larson's trial lawyer bungled it badly. The lawyer's most egregious error was that he never had the knife processed for fingerprints. Sworn testimony from a retired cop also later showed Larson never had the knife, another man did. Larson's attorney was later disbarred for his incompetence, and a judge ordered the state to retry Larson or let him go. Harris could have done just that. Instead, her office fought to keep Larson locked up on technical grounds because he hadn't filed his petition quickly enough. Larson spent 2 more years in prison battling Harris's office. Harris's team eventually lost its bid in appeals court to keep this innocent man behind bars, but that didn't stop her from blocking all financial compensation due to Larson for the wrongful conviction. Speaking of innocence, imagine being a poor family struggling with bills and truant kids in the tougher corners of sunny but expensive California. Then imagine Attorney General Kamala Harris tossing you in jail on top of it. That happened. Then she lied about doing it. In a 2010 speech, Harris talked about prosecuting parents for truancy.
And I believe a child going without an education is tantamount to a crime.
She doubled down in 2011 during her inaugural address as California DA, saying, "So we are putting parents on notice. If you fail in your responsibility to your kids, we are going to work to make sure you face the full force and consequences of the law." Harris admits she personally prosecuted 20 families under this policy, according to the Washington Post, but has repeatedly denied anyone went to jail. But that's not exactly true. While no one in San Francisco went to jail for their child's truancy while Harris was district attorney, she pushed for her anti-truancy policy to go statewide, which it did in 2011. The law called for up to a $2,000 fine and a year in prison for parents of kids who missed more than 10% of school days with no excuse. Dozens of families were charged under this law, and though records aren't thorough, at least 7 parents went to jail under Harris's initiative. Her, quote, careful claims to the contrary were given 2 Pinocchios by the Washington Post. There is a deviously effective technique in the debate world called the Gish Gallop. It's when you spew so many falsehoods in such rapid succession that your interlocutor is put in the difficult position of either rebutting you endlessly or actually getting to their point. In Kamala Harris's 2020 vice presidential debate with Mike Pence, a question came on the topic of delaying Supreme Court justice nominations until after an election. Democrats favored this at the time, so Harris invented a, quote, unsubstantiated reasoning, according to factcheck.org, and ironically attributed it to Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln faced a similar nomination close to his own election, claimed Harris, adding, "But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States." Historians told the outlet that there's speculation to Lincoln's motive, but that probably wasn't it, and there is no record of Lincoln saying what Harris described. Harris, it seems, sometimes has a complicated relationship with the truth.